Before I get into anything, I just want to talk about the Volume 2 leaks that have supposedly come out. So, I'm really unsure of the validity of them, and if it isn't officially addressed, then it's just gonna leave room for a lot of speculation for what could have been, and it is already making people in this fandom look insane. So, for now, I will keep it in mind that they are out there, but I just feel like there's just so much going on with this volume release as it is, and I don't want to rely on something that may not be 100% true, you know? So, that being said, if they do turn out to be real, there's going to be a lot to answer for by either the creators of the show or whoever at Netflix thought this absolute clusterfuck of a volume was okay. Also, I need to say this, I do not support any of the outrageous review bombing that is going on by upset Byler fans and homophobic idiots alike. This fixes absolutely nothing and it makes this entire fandom look insane. Okay? Anyways, I've given myself some time now since I've watched episode 7, mostly to calm down, but also to re-watch the scene and fully process everything. And I'm so sorry, I still don't like it. I honestly think we did not need a coming out scene like this, and I need to say this in case anybody misunderstands me. I am perfectly fine with a coming out scene. I'm not saying we don't need one at all. I just don't like this one specifically, because we do not need to be coddled to feel validated. And I'll tell you exactly why. Will's coming out scene didn't make sense narratively. What I was ranting about in my last video that I may have failed to convey was that when Will was first planning to talk to his mother about Vecna showing him things, I was expecting it to be in the similar vein as how Vecna showed Nancy Hawkins was being destroyed, and that he was showing Will the world ending because he's now using him to be the spy again. So I thought he was going to have to tell everyone straight up what was going to happen if they failed, so it like raises the stakes of their mission to make it actually feel ride or die, because right now the plot armor in the show is getting absolutely ridiculous. My point is, even if Byler is endgame, which I'll get to later in this video, don't worry, you can't deny that the scene was completely mishandled and misrepresented. And what I was crashing out about before in my previous video was that Will most probably feels extremely guilty and responsible for the lives lost because of his creations of the tunnels and being connected to the hive mind and to Vecna. And I still think he's planning to do like a self-sacrifice thing by going with the party because he feels responsible. And if that was just set up better, Will coming out would have a lot more emotional impact to the characters that mattered to Will. Which is what irked me the most, because who are those people? It's the core four and his family. That was all Will needed, because those are the people who never gave up on Will. He did not need to tell everyone, because that's not what we need. I'm sorry, what completely went over the creators of the scene's head was that they didn't make the scene about Will in the end. They made the scene about everyone else but him. And as a queer person, this doesn't represent me in the slightest. Because I would never tell a room full of half strangers, yes, half strangers, regardless of the time skip, and don't even get me started on Carly being there, I wouldn't tell them something so important. Coming out, to me, is the most vulnerable thing you choose to do. Let me say that again, God willing, it is something that you choose to do, because we do not owe it to the whole world to explain ourselves because of society being narrow-minded. And that's what they got wrong about this scene. You don't come out of the closet in a triumphant manner just because you finally realize there's nothing wrong with you. No, you come out because you come to an understanding with yourself. You come out because something finally clicks for you. You come out because it is for you. But on top of that, when you do, you are accepting the people who are important to you to be there for you. And yes, I know case by case it is so different and is so scary, But ultimately, it is us putting our comfort at the forefront of everything. So if you don't want to tell someone because you're scared they may hate you, or God forbid worse, because of their poor understanding, then guess what? You don't need to tell them. And that's what's frustrating me the most. The writers never gave Will his independence in this moment to make that decision. They never empowered him. Will never chose this. Vecna scaring Will with the hypothetical of him losing everyone he cares about was a ridiculous and badly written plot device to force this boy out of the closet when he never needed to do that. We don't need the whole wide world to know, especially in a small town like Hawkins. I'm sorry, a mass coming out scene would only work in 2025, where it is again sociably acceptable. Not in goddamn 1987, when people were murdered for simply being perceived as gay. But have we not learned from anything from the first season of the same damn show? To me, this whole thing goes against so much more than just people being mad that the plot twist was a coming out scene, which I know people of the general audience are probably annoyed about, and honestly, with how it was handled, I don't blame them. But at the same time, I don't encourage any of the homophobia that this is receiving at this moment. Right now, I'm not worried about this scene disproving or proving Byler because it ultimately was a poorly written scene. Please don't get it twisted. I am absolutely not hating on the actors involved. They did amazing, especially Noah and Charlie, and I feel really bad for them, but this is attempting to parade itself around as the ultimate form of allyship in media history, where a room full of almost all straight people coddle a gay person telling him that they're okay with him existing is the lesson. Like, what in the fucking world is that? Keeping to the same topic, I think this was a disservice to Will Byers himself. Was it a lovely scene? Yes, I can acknowledge that, but it wasn't necessary or plot relevant in the slightest, and it damaged absolutely everything they built up Will's character to be in the same season. To me, it looks like he literally goes back to being this caricature of a little helpless gay boy who's afraid of everything, and I just find that unfair. Like, he couldn't even be confident in his powers for a full day before they snatched that away from him. My expectations for Volume 2 was that I was waiting for Will to push himself to the absolute brink of insanity, to do everything in his power to save his loved ones and save Holly and the kids, because that's what matters to him. Instead, we get one Frankenstein project go wrong and it was enough to mess him up completely. Like, excuse me, what was that? The fact that he was able to control Vecna and Vecna's own mindscape was amazing, and then they just pushed that to the side. Like, can you imagine if they just let Will have that moment? Like, finding Max and Holly and saving them through the very creature that tormented them all. Like, it was going so well until he got knocked out. Now, am I saying that Will needed to have like nerves of steel coming face to face with Vecna? Absolutely not. He is allowed to be afraid because he was alone with Vecna in the very place he was traumatized and held captive in all those years ago. I just didn't understand when he was rescued and woken up and then told to have been seeing visions that, see, the thing is with me, by now even we the audience know that it is just a trick to mess with him, so it didn't carry the amount of emotional weight that Will was making it out to be. And the thing is, Will himself even acknowledges that it's not real and Vecna can't see the future, so what was the point? I think it would have been more rewarding narratively for Will to have fully become the spy for Vecna in that moment, just to make it feel like we could lose him again after everything he went through, to make him fight an internal struggle to reach out to his mother and tell them all that he's the spy. But regardless of that, because of his willpower, pun not intended, that he is stronger than that. Like, how hard is it to give my boy a fucking backbone and make it stick? I think it would make things feel hopeless to increase the urgency of the situation, which we need. And just think about it. Like, think about Will phasing in and out of his Vecna trance, and he's fighting with himself tooth and nail to tell the party that he's the spy again. Vecna knows everything, but regardless of that, Will still wants to help. Regardless of his fears, he wants to go, and regardless of the risk, he wants to take it because he deserves to be by Al's side in all of this as well. And I think that would actually mean something, because at this point right now, I don't even care about the fate of Hawkins. I'm so sorry, because apparently the power of friendship is gonna stop the world from colliding into itself. Like, I just think it's bullshit at this point. And this is coming from somebody who loves Naruto and loved the Natlan story quest in Genshin, so you know it's bad even if I think the power of friendship is a shit trope right now. My point is simply, the coming out scene doesn't diminish the impact of the scene, but the circumstances of which it was portrayed in was poorly executed. And that let down Will Byers the most, because we already had a self-acceptance moment in the sorcerer. What was that for? I'm not saying all of Will's fears should suddenly vanish, but having another queer person to speak to and form a close bond of allyship for, of something only you two can understand in the time period that you are in, was all Will needed. It was an unspoken understanding revealed in a powerful conclusion. To know that he is not alone, and to know that he can fall in love, because my boy deserves that. He deserves to fall in love. Like, what lesson is this teaching queer people? That we need to suffer to earn the right to love while straight people get endless passes? And I'm looking at you, Lumax, when I'm thinking about that, even though I absolutely adore you guys. My point is that this was the wrong time for any of this to happen, but of course it was the wrong time because the Duffers had too much to cater towards, and they had to put this in somewhere and also cater to the 15 other cast members as well. And honestly, at this point, I'm really wishing we had about maybe 10 episodes now to make everything actually flow better. Because volume 2 was in essence just reveal after reveal after reveal without any time to process anything. They were amazing reveals, mind you. I love where the plot is going, but they did not give anyone time to process things, even their own characters. Max didn't even know Hopper was alive, and they just zoomed past that. No pun intended, but they didn't have time to acknowledge that. And that's the thing, right? Because of that, they did not have time to treat this queer storyline with the amount of care and thought it deserves. And I will still say this even if we do get Byler, because I really think we could have had so much more. Because with this being a disservice to Will, in my opinion, this was also a disservice to Mike and his intelligence. Because I really don't know what the Duffers were thinking when they reduced Mike's character to just being Will's Tammy. Also, side note, Tammy fucking Thompson, the chokehold you have on this group right now is crazy work, girl. Literally the fate of the world is being tied back to you, and I find that insane. Anyways, before people sound off in the comments that this was from Will's perspective and Will isn't giving himself a chance to think that Mike may like him back, and this is Will reducing Mike to just being a Tammy to cope, I know, I promise you, I know. But at the same time, we need to look at the reality of the situation. Because in plain terms, Will literally said it to the audience that Mike is his Tammy, and that is a disservice to Mike Wheeler. Feisty, intelligent, protective, ambitious, and brave Mike Wheeler. I need to ask people to not think about the hypothetical episode 8 for just a moment and focus on what we have right now, which is that in this very moment, Mike's character is taking a colossal hit. Because at this point in time, we've been given room to currently acknowledge that season 3 and 4 Mike was just an ass to Will and Eleven purely for the love of the game. There is no portrayal of character complexity, there was no moment of recognition, because the fact that the Duffers had to come out and tell us that Mike realizes that he was Will's crush in this scene speaks volumes, and I only found out about that because of a lovely person in my comments. So anyways, what I'm saying is that Mike has currently been removed from playing an important role in Will's arc, and because of that, he has been removed from his own arc. Season 1 and 2 Mike has been put to the side right now, all in favor for being compared to Tammy fucking Thompson, and I find it bonkers. Like, we're talking about Mike. Mike, who led the party on their own search for Will. Mike, who stood up to Will's bullies when he wasn't there. Mike, who spent days sleeping at Will's bedside on the floor as soon as he found out something was wrong with him. Mike, who biked across Hawkins in the rain to apologize to Will when he hurt his feelings. Mike, who said we'll go crazy together. And Mike, who believed in Will being the sorcerer. I'm sorry, but whatever reveal they're hypothetically planning for episode 8 right now is not going to undo the amount of damage Mike's character has just taken in this moment. They're just doing my boy so dirty right now, and it is making me so mad because Mike is so much more than that, and it's not even because he sent it to Will. He as a character on his own is so much more. I was really hoping we got to see things from Mike's perspective as soon as we got into volume 2, and honestly, at the top of my head, I think the closest we got to that was Mike's reaction to the party losing Holly again, because he looked devastated. And I think whatever we're gonna get in volume 3 is gonna be a bit too late now. Because when you write a drastic character change like you see in season 3 and 4, you're slowly supposed to clue in your audience as to why this happened in the first place and give them moments to compare the character to and make them aware that something changed for a reason. And we see that in season 4, in the airport scene, moving to the scene in Will's room, and to the van scene, which brings me to the biggest disservice of them all. With the information we have now, what the fuck was the van scene for? Because I think comparing Mike to Tammy was the biggest middle finger they could have given the van scene in, because Robin didn't even know Tammy. Like, she didn't even know the first thing about her. That's why she kept idealizing her. The only thing she did know was that Tammy was shit at singing, and then she proceeded to make herself like that singing. You can't compare the two because Mike is Will's best friend. And he is arguably the person who Will felt the safest with, because, in my opinion at least, the whole van scene was Will telling Mike under the guise of Al that when he's with Mike, he doesn't feel different. The world may ostracize him, but when he is with Mike, he is himself. And he looks at Mike and he tells him that. Like, I can acknowledge the part of Will needing Mike may have changed because he now accepts himself, but that doesn't take away Mike's fundamental importance to Will. Like, did they forget about that in the 3 years it took them to make the season, what the scene was about? Because now instead we have Will catering to the very world that ostracized him rather than to his best friend. And what worries me the most is that Mike Wheeler may just be the worst character in television history because of this. And I never thought I'd see this day come, because I had faith in the Duffers. I thought they knew what they were doing, and instead they couldn't even give Fun/Mike proper lines, just a few questionable facial expressions that they had to explain in a tweet. Moving on, finally, to my thoughts on the possibility of Byler in the future. I want to be totally honest with you, alright? Like, take this coming out scene into heavy consideration when I say this, but if we get Byler at the end of this, will you guys be satisfied? Because I'm not sure if I will after this disaster, because I feel like it's gonna be everything homophobic people dream of. They're gonna say it feels forced and that it's going to look like inclusivity for inclusivity's sake instead of what it could have been, which was a simple ass love story. I'm so sorry, but what is so hard about writing queer characters that makes people mess it up so often? All we needed for Mike and Will was one thing to be addressed, which was the painting. It just needed to kickstart the cogs in Mike's head to turn, and in turn the audience, so that they can see what's going on. It was that simple. Also, side note, now that I'm thinking about it, I highly recommend you all to look at the video the Byler lawyer made about how Byler could be revealed in 2 minutes, because it is so good and I'm immediately thinking about that while ranting about this. Because the thing is, we don't need intertwining self-loving character arcs hinging on self-acceptance, for crying out loud. Sometimes all we need is to see the one character who says he's not gonna fall in love with his best friend fall in love with him and get loved back. It's not that hard. It is extremely frustrating to me to see how people can mess up the most simplest things. Because sometimes we don't need a moment. We don't need an audience. We are not a spectacle. We don't need fucking hugs. We just want our love to be acknowledged in the same way any straight couple in a show does, where it is treated as absolute from the moment the characters are pointed out to be love interests. And I just think that if that is something you can't portray, you should not be trusted with queer stories. I'm sorry, but we didn't need this. It is 2025. There is so much you can pull from. And if you don't want to pull from real life, we have an entire Yaoi-verse of shows doing so much better than you guys right now, because they are focusing on the love aspect of the story. That rant aside, let's talk about Byler still being a possibility in the last 2 hours of the show. And I'm going to be so honest with you guys right now, but the only way that it's going to work for me personally is to have Mike be begging and screaming at Will that he is not Tammy. We need to see absolutely anything happening to Mike right now. He needs to question the painting now that he apparently knows he's Will's crush. He needs to question himself. He needs to think about how he treated Will. I had such high hopes for Mike's vindication arc, for all the pieces to finally fall into place for Mike and the audience so that they can understand the complexities of internalized homophobia, and I was let down so badly, guys. I can't even scratch the surface of how disappointed I am about how they're letting down my son. Like, they are just letting him so down right now. Oh my god. Anyways, I'm not the type of person who's going to analyze colors or clothes or talk about symbolism too much. I created this channel with the nuance take in mind that there is enough evidence to support Byler without having to dig too deep, and I will stand by that. We shouldn't need to be doing all of this to this extent. To clarify, I think finding hints, foreshadowing, and parallels are amazing, and I am not talking about them in a negative light. What I mean is that we shouldn't be out here digging trenches out of puddles for character portrayals that can simply be portrayed. I really hope I don't sound crazy saying that, but the Duffers clearly aren't masterminds. They're fantastic, they've made a great show, but they can also make bad calls and decisions, and I don't think the coming out scene was made with bad intentions, but in reality, they are just a couple of straight men who should have done more research. All in all, my little sliver of Byler hope is hinging on Mike actually doing something. And I had so much faith because in Volume 1, it was really building it up for him to be more involved. But when you have a cast this big and you try to throw them all in the same room without any direction, you're bound to lose it. No one is immune to that. But for me, what I need for Byler to be satisfying in the most simplest of terms is a realistic crash out, a confession, and a goddamn kiss from Mike Wheeler. Because right now, we're way past the time we need for anything self-discovery wise in Mike to portray to the general audience, especially to them. Even now, more so, since I'm expecting Will to try a self-sacrifice, which I am really hoping the Duffers aren't stupid enough to make him actually do and actually kill him off immediately after coming out. Like, the fact that I have to even say that out loud now when the thought of it didn't even bother me before because I was confident they wouldn't do that speaks volumes. There's like so much hinging on my boys right now, and I'm praying that the Duffers can prove me wrong and turn this around in the time they have. Because the stakes are supposed to be at its highest right now. Anyways, for my more delusional Byler belief, let's talk more about why I still have hope. I will say some of the positive things that have come out of Volume 2 is that I now have more confidence that Malevolent has broken up. Because of the entire tub scene where Mike tells Al friends don't lie, instead of saying to her like, you're my girlfriend and I care about you, or something that would indicate that they are in a relationship. Will this be addressed? I don't know. But Mike going out of his way to bring up Will in the conversation about their relationship is just alarm bells ringing in my head. And like I said in my Mike analysis video, Al would be the one to unintentionally demean his D&D analogies, which she absolutely did. Another thing that still gives me hope is Mike still being in the Upside Down with Will, which I think could work out really well for a type of confession scene. Who knows, maybe it will be like a reverse Jancy, like forced proximity breakup, where Mike brings up who's Will's crush just to try to get him to say it's him, and even like bring up the painting to try and get an answer out of him. Another thing that may just be my biggest indication of a hopeful Byler ending, and that will actually give this coming out scene more of a positive than forced spin, is that Will comes out to everyone in the radio station, arguably where putting out signals would be the strongest at its source, and Mike is there hearing it for himself for the first time properly that Will doesn't like girls, and that he has liked Mike this entire time. Even if he calls Mike his Tammy, reducing him to nothing but a crush, maybe as a coping mechanism, is that Will has finally put the signal out there, and maybe that's the one Mike finally receives, where all the pieces fall into place for Mike, which is why we see his face change and he starts to sit up straight when Will says that he doesn't like girls. And it would be Will unknowingly putting the ball in Mike's court and leaving room for Mike to do something. I will say it again, I do believe we don't have enough time for a drip feed of introspective moments for Mike, which I would have preferred, but that doesn't mean we don't have time for the floodgates to open, or should I say pipe gates in this scenario. I was actually going to stop there, but since we're going crazy together, let's go even crazier and say that my next hypothesis on Byler possibilities is that what if Will's coming out scene wasn't actually Will at all? This is definitely going to be one of my sillier theories, but I was talking to some friends of mine when I saw them after Volume 2 came out, and one of them mentioned to me how weird they found it that it took Max so long to get out of Vecna's mindscape because Al couldn't find her, but Al just finds Will and can immediately bring him back with no problem. Like Vecna wasn't even guarding Will, yet put such an heavy emphasis on using him as the spy. And it just doesn't make sense, and I agreed a lot with him. Because it doesn't make sense, unless Vecna wanted Will to be taken. I think by now we know how the Mind Flayer controlled Will in Season 2, right? By laying dormant in him and speaking through him. But what if, and extremely heavy emphasis on if here, what if Vecna still has some of Will stuck in his mindscape and is using his fears against him, especially the fear of being outed and rejected by the people Will loves the most, furthering Will's guilt and pushing him towards sacrificing himself. Because he is still the spy, he is still connected to Vecna, and Will was able to control him in his own mind space, so Will is still very much a threat to Vecna. So let's just say Vecna forces Will out of the closet, which is why we don't see any of the visions he gives him, but it doesn't fully go as planned because the party accepts Will, but that doesn't matter because now no one would suspect Will of still being under Vecna's control because you wouldn't see it coming. No one would see it coming except Mike. Mike, who figured out Will was the spy the first time it happened, and we see him do it again. Would that be insane? Absolutely. Would it be fucked up that they created a coming out scene to actually hurt a queer character? Yes. Would it be ballsy as hell and actually call out coming out scenes as this ridiculous plot device? Yes, it most definitely would. Will it actually happen? I have no goddamn clue, babe. I have no clue. But I think it would be absolutely insane if something like that had to happen. I will stand by my point that we didn't need this type of coming out scene, and just making Will and Mike talk to each other would have been enough. But if we did need one, here's a scenario that I cooked up in my little gay head for how it could have gone. So, after Will and Robin talk to each other in Shock Jock and the revelation that Steve Harrington knows that Robin is a lesbian and he's still Robin's friend, it makes Will think about his own friends and family. Will goes through the same motions of being trapped in Vecna's mindscape, and the wormhole plot is revealed. But there's just so much eating away at Will right now that he can't focus. He can't hide what Vecna showed him, and the revelation of being a spy scares him. But if he had to talk about it, it comes at the cost of outing himself. So he thinks, maybe he's still too scared to tell the Core 4, but he remembers Robin, and he thinks to himself, just one person. And he thinks about his mom. So before the party is all set to go, Will pulls Joyce aside, but Jonathan notices, and instead of Mike coming in and asking them if he's interrupting something, Jonathan asks Will and Joyce, what's going on, and Will, are you okay? Will hesitates for a moment, but then he looks at Jonathan and he says, I think you need to hear this too. And instead of Will going through the whole I'm just like you, you're just like me spiel, he talks to his mother and brother about how he used to be bullied, about how he was called names. And at first, Joyce and Jonathan misunderstand, and they think they're talking about Will being called Zombie Boy. So they comfort Will, telling him that those kids were awful and wrong. And Jonathan even says, you know what? I think Zombie Boy is actually a cool name for someone who just came back from the dead. It makes Will smile, but it doesn't help him fully, so he has to clarify. And he says, no, I mean, before all of this, before the Upside Down, they used to call me awful names, terrible names, like the ones Dad used to call me. And he starts to cry, and Joyce and Jonathan realize what he's talking about, and they start to comfort him. Joyce holds his hand and asks him what would even make him think about that in a time like this, and Jonathan starts to look at him, feeling upset, feeling like he didn't protect Will enough. Will looks at them through teary eyes and says there's something he hasn't been honest about, and he tells them what Vecna showed him. He tells them how Vecna called him weak, and how Vecna is planning on using him as the spy again. He tells them about creating the tunnels, feeling responsible for so many people who've died. He even feels like it's his fault that Bob died. And Will just keeps going and getting more emotional, saying that he knows the things that Vecna showed him weren't real, but he was afraid because he used his happiest memories to protect himself like he did at the Maxi, but they didn't work because he wasn't being truthful with himself in that moment. He takes a deep breath and he looks at his mother and his brother and he says, for the longest time I thought something was wrong with me because of those bullies, because of the way Dad treated me. And Vecna used that against me. He showed me being alone with no one because of who I am. And he tried to make me feel wrong. But, Mom, is it wrong? Am I wrong? Just because I don't like girls? Will starts sobbing at this point, and he's still speaking, saying, I just don't want to lose anyone, but it doesn't feel wrong. He looks at his mother and he says, remember that time I said that I wasn't gonna fall in love? I lied. I did. But it's with a guy. But he... And then Will can't speak anymore. So Joyce holds Will and she tells him that he'll never lose her because of who he is, and that he is her son no matter what, and she will always love him. Jonathan, with tears in his eyes, looks at Will and tells him that he'll never lose him either, and he will always be there for him as his big brother. He gets up and he hugs Will, and it is a beautiful, tearful exchange. But the camera slowly pans away to outside of the room, where we see Mike standing there, frozen. His eyes suddenly begin to well with tears because he finally realizes something. And scene. Oh god, I actually made myself emotional. If anyone is wondering if I write fanfictions, yes I do. Will you find them? Absolutely not. Also, if anyone wants to use this as a scene idea, you're most welcome to do so. Just don't forget to credit me, okay? But this is my idea of a perfect coming out scene for Will. A good multi-layered scene that just invokes enough emotion and intimacy to make this scene about Will. Of course, we can add the whole party in here if we want to, because Lucas and Dustin do love Will, and so does Al and Max, but I think when it really comes down to it, the people who needed to hear this the most are Joyce, Jonathan, and Mike, because they are the people who mean the most to him, and the people that helped him achieve his powers along with Robin. I just want to add this bit in here before I end the video, and I know there is no possible way that the actor for Will, Noah Schnapp, is going to see this, but I just want to tell him that I am incredibly sorry for the way that the fandom is treating him right now, when he did the most spectacular job in portraying a gay character's coming out scene, knowing that he himself is gay. I am sorry. It is not your fault for people being absolutely disgusting towards you at this moment for a scene that you did not write or script or plan. You were just doing your job as the actor, and I really feel so bad for him right now because he does not deserve this. He just came off a career high and now it's plummeting all the way back to the ground. It's not fair, and I just want to say that I am really sorry. Even me making a video like this might be like a negative impact, but I am talking about this purely in the stance of that I am disappointed in the way the writers chose to handle your character. It has absolutely nothing to do with the way you have portrayed him, because I love Will Byers so much, and the thing that frustrates me the most is that he just never wins, and I hate that it's something that reflects in reality as well. So I really hope that it's just over, and that once the finale of the show airs, that people can just calm the fuck down a bit and stop being terrible to him. I don't understand why nobody's actually doing anything about this, or like this is like purposefully malice. I don't get it. I don't understand why nothing is being done about this to this poor boy. Anyways, I think this video has gone on long enough, so will any of my hypothetical Byler predictions actually happen? I can only hope, guys. Like, I can only hope. In the meantime, group hugs for all, which I may actually start ending my videos with this, but let me know what you think and how you're feeling, because currently, the only thing I am happy about with this volume is accidentally calling out the wormhole plot with an arcane joke I made in my mic video, so that's a win. Anyways, I really hope we all survive episode 8, and I hope everyone has a happy new year. So, yeah, goodbye.